Om Sahanavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavaditam Astu Mavidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May He protect us both. May He give us vigor and strength. May He give us vigor in our studies. May He nourish us. May we not cavil amongst each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. We are studying currently the Bhagavad Gita, but this week we'll be a little bit more open about it and start off by inviting open questions. And then we'll lead into the theme that we picked up on the Bhagavad Gita. But before we do that, broadly speaking, we'll cover some of the ground that we have. So for those unfamiliar with the celestial song called Bhagavad Gita, it begins with a human condition of desperation. And all of us from time to time have been involved in it. Nobody can declare that they have been consistently happy and peaceful all their life. In fact, we are struggling toward it. Bioevolutionary theorists will tell us that there's such a thing as natural selection, but be unable to tell us why it should be there. Why should we have a mechanism like that? Well, the answer, according to the Vedanta, is that there's an inner urge to get back to our own source. And that source is a source of absolute freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from distress, freedom from pain, freedom from sorrow, freedom from difficulties. Not by dissociating from them, not by ignoring them, but having a spirit of adventure that goes right into the heart of them, with a reevaluation about what is life. Understanding that life is not against us. Life is not something that we fight and claw tooth and nail. This was Darwin's idea, that that's what should be happening. Nature was seen to be something like a wild animal in the Victorian times. It's something that is our enemy and we have to crush it. And if we don't crush it, it'll crush us. And only the fittest will survive. This is the Darwinian theory portrayed in The Origin of the Species. But the older philosophers, going back thousands of years, had a different idea and understood evolution in a different way. They saw it in its literal sense as something that unrolls or unfolds. And that is why Charles Darwin seldom used this term evolution. He knew the trap. If I take it as something that unfolds, something that unwraps, unravels, then I have to accept some pre-existing thing. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that we can explain everything just by this phenomenon called nature, and beyond a natural explanation, we don't have to go. We don't have to go into anything pre-existing. So that's the one thing. Even 50 years before that, there was Lamarck. Lamarck's idea was that there was some transgenerational inheritance. What that means is, if you behave differently, it may pass on to your children. Not through the genes, of course, that's not the mechanism. But today we find it's true. Today there's strong evidence that if you choose to eat badly, if you choose to eat carbohydrates and fats together, then what will happen is two things. Firstly, you'll grow fat. Why should we not grow fat? Sleek and fat, why not? In the 19th century, somebody who was fat was deemed to be robust. John Bull, yeah? With a paunch, well invested, a walking stick, walking, Johnny Walker. So that was the idea. Even amongst European royalty, it was the idea that if you are well established physically, in other words, if you are fat, you are deemed to be prosperous. We even have that idea in mythology. See, Ganesha is there with a pot belly, yeah, and deemed to be the epitome of prosperity. Even that idea we have. Somebody who can afford to eat in a luxurious way. But what does that do to our system? So when we talk of, and on Saturday, we introduced the subject of meditation to a group of people. He was among them. Both of you were among them. It was well supported by about 4 people. I hope we'll get more. I hope more people will be interested in this difficult subject of meditation. So one thing we brought to the fore was the real text, universally accepted everywhere on meditation, is Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And there we find there are 8 steps, 8 stages along the road. It's a textbook, Jnana Yoga. That is the yoga of meditation. And it is Raja Yoga, this is the royal path. That's not taught to everybody. The Bhagavad Gita calls it Raja and Guya. Royal and secret. Why should it be secret? Because if this power of concentration is taught to everybody, then we'll misuse it. Concentration is very key. We're at that stage in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita where the stanza we're about to pick up emphasizes this question of meditation, that is concentration in all activities. Secular, sacred, doesn't matter. Success comes to us when we can take all our mental energies and direct it in a single way like a laser beam. And it has the capacity to reveal things. Some examples, Beethoven. Beethoven wasn't conscious. Did I eat? Did I drink? Did I sleep? Food was left at his door. And the most wonderful compositions came out. Einstein, thinking upon problems, mulling it over day and night, came up with some inspirations. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb in a dream. Must have been on his mind, continuously cogitating on this problem. We know that when concentration is lacking, mistakes occur, and this can result in some disasters. Chernobyl will be one such example. All these disasters happen, industrial disasters happen on when? Night shift, when people are sleeping, when the attention wanders, and the full capacity of attention is all over the place, misdirected. Now, according to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this is due to 2 aspects, an interest in Aishwarya and Bhoga. Bhoga Aishwarya, that is enjoyment and power. All of our interests can fall under these 2 categories. And this is what makes the mind so deviant. This is what takes this mental energy and dissipates it in different areas. But is it easy to be concentrated? Are there some preconditions that are necessary? Coming back to Patanjali Yoga Sutras, yes. Where does meditation come in these 8 steps of meditation? Number 7. You can't jump into it. What about steps 1 to 6? Why didn't you do those? What's step 1? Leading a life orientated around the highest possible human values, which involves self-control. The mind is seen to be an instrumental thing. We are seen to be separate from it. And the mind is made from 3 components according to the Sankhya psychology. Now the Sankhyas and the Vedantins, they differ in their conclusions. Nevertheless, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, number 19th stanza is there. It tells us about the Gunas. Shankaracharya in his commentary mentions that with regard to these 3 evolutionary components of nature, the Sankhya's are the experts. These principles are accepted in all the philosophies. So these are some things that we will discuss. There's a broad introduction to where we are, and the fact that we start off with an area of deficit, an area of discomfort, an area that we want to improve. On the basis of what? Not on the basis of randomness, but on the basis of intentionality, which says we have a supreme purpose in life. And the goal of life is clear. Swami Vivekananda in that same Raja Yoga puts it succinctly. Each soul is potentially divine, and the goal is to manifest that divinity from within. Then he tackles nature. This is how you control nature, internal and external. We can control nature external. We can produce huge concrete dams. We can dam huge bodies of water. In Zimbabwe, we have, if not we have certainly, I think it may still be, the largest man-made dam in the world. And so there's a huge concrete wall there, constructed, engineered so many years ago, completed in the 1950s already, holding back the largest man-made lake in the world. You can look out on the horizon, you can't see the end of it, looks like a sea. This huge body of water, man is able to put under his thumb. And yet some people will say that of all the disasters in the world, about 5 natural disasters in the world, the 6th is liable to be man-made. We are likely to destroy our whole world. It is well known that dinosaurs disappeared on the basis of a huge asteroid hitting this planet, affecting us, affecting the whole planet, and making dinosaurs obsolete. They were the most successful species. On record, they still are the most successful species. A man has the capacity to control nature or not control nature, to direct it in a certain way, even if it's against him, based on this idea of power, getting power, conjoined with enjoyment. And the more our technology increases and improves, the more our desire for power and enjoyment increases, so that it becomes an easier life. I was walking down the road today. Now when 2 people walk in the opposite directions, one of them at least has to be alert, because the other one is doing thumb exercises and not paying any attention to where they're going. So that's the difficulty we have. Modern technology is there for our convenience. And we have made huge, huge technological strides to make things convenient. Nowadays, when we want to advertise a talk like this, WhatsApp alone is necessary, or an announcement on the Facebook, which we're yet to do. So this is modern technology, and it's going to improve, and it's going to get faster. We had Swami Narasimhananda, a younger Swami, come along. He says he watches me put something in a diary or a notebook. Says, Swami, Maharaj, why are you doing this? To remind me of this, I want to organize things well. No. This is what you need. He thrusts my phone at me. He says, no, you should do this. So I let him carry on, because a young man, he knows all the technology well. Then after all of that, I said, thank you very much, put the phone back in my pocket and carried on with my notebook. You see, I can't see the size of the text, but he's carrying a larger phone. I remember when mobile phones came out, it was huge. You had to carry a backpack almost to carry it around. A big radio. Oh, that's mobile technology, it's just radio technology, isn't it? So now it went smaller, now it's growing bigger, because you're expected to use it, not just to make a phone call. Sooner or later, it'll do all your laundry for you as well. Anyhow, by remote control probably. Why not? So all of this technology is increasing, improving, but where is man's attention? Where is man's self-control? So controlling nature, external, but internal is more important, because you can only master things properly. You can only deal with this Bhogashwara by self-control, control of the senses, control of the mind. Katha Upanishad is very much an echo of the Bhagavad Gita. They are complementary texts. If you want to meditate, then first of all, what will you have to do? Get peace of mind and so on and so forth. But ultimately it results in control the senses. You have to be able to master the sense organs, the avenues to the outside world, as part of the mind, and then take your attention and learn how to voluntarily steer it in a chosen direction that is not against you, but for you and others. In our ignorance, we don't think it's against us. But of course it is, because it's pain-bearing. So amongst all this preparation for meditation, we find this category of self-control called yam. 5 items are there. And this covers this area of Aishwarya Bhoga. Aishwarya Bhoga, we can control that. But controlling the attention isn't an easy thing. So on Saturday, we sat down in silence for 10-15 minutes. Then I got feedback. How was it? Difficult? What happened? I was thinking of the shoe rack, how we brought that in and assembled. I was thinking of this, I was thinking of that. We pointed out that the mind is so easily misled that the word association quickly follows. You sit down, think of nice green grass, next thing, oh, did I put my green jersey in the wash? The green, what a wonderful color, how the Irish selected it. Before you know it, you're thinking of your cousin who wore green last week. And what a shame that he's in the hospital, and all that. That happens much more rapidly than what I'm saying. Before we know it, a sudden wake-up call, oh, I was distracted, what happened? We've gotten accustomed to a busy mind. So it requires careful control. Now the second item mentions purity. What kind of purity? Well, we can start off from the outer layer, physical purity. How do we develop physical purity? You see, there are some people who avoid hatha yoga exercise. In the West, people think yoga means standing your head or eating some sour cream or something laden with bugs or yeast, or standing on somebody else's head possibly. I don't know, all right? All of these physical exercises. But there's a serious aspect to it. There's nothing internally that will clean your system other than moving it, mobilizing the lymph around, and we do that through exercise. But we don't go overboard about it. We don't spend 24 hours of the day exercising the body. 3/4 of an hour a day is enough. But then what about the food we select? It's traditional in the Vedanta monastic system to repeat the extract from here, this Bhagavad Gita, Om Brahmapanam, Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, and so on. Thinking that we are reenacting Ahavan, that the Lord of the universe sits in there as Vaishvana, digestive fire, and we, the offerer, are offering sacred food into the sacred opening, sacred mouth, into the sacred flames in the digestive system, and blessing every movement, including the hand. And when we see Brahman in all these ingredients, components, actions, as well as the recipient, the fire itself, we go on unto Brahman. But very often people repeat the prayer and then carelessly eat, not mindfully, not taking this food as sacramental food and eating it in a nourishing way, an appreciative way. We're not asked to say, eat dull food, eat boring food. No, eat tasty food. Enjoy it. Enjoy every moment. Swami Vivekananda often told how his atheist friend Ingersoll challenged him and said, you see, the problem is with all you people is you don't know how to enjoy, how to enjoy the orange of life. No, said Vivekananda, quite the opposite. We know how to squeeze every drop. We know how to enjoy to the full. Why? Because every moment is filled with thankfulness. Cultivating contentment is part of the second part of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras that deal with niyam, specialized things that we should do, purificatory systems. So we have niyam that incorporates physical purity, starting with bathing Before you engage in your practice, says Vivekananda, make sure that you bathe the body first. And before you eat, so sheer hunger will force you to your spiritual practice. So all of these are steps in terms of this very difficult process of controlling internal nature that we call the mind. But let's not stop there. We're about to discover that even the Vedas should be rejected. Under what circumstances? Under circumstances when you know Brahman, when you know truth, when you realize that, then what use is the Vedas? The Vedas is as much use as a tank full of water when there's a flood everywhere. It's the only religion that says, please at the appropriate juncture, abandon your scripture. Take your text, it's had its use. It was a scaffolding, you used it, you don't require it anymore. If we used that properly, we would never fall into the trap of text torturing. Drawing a line under, the Bible says this, the Quran says this, the Vedas say this, and that's all there is to it. We can't deviate from it. Without understanding, there's a practical application for it. It's not about rules and regulations. From the start, yam and yam are all about rules and regulations. But there's a practical reason for it. And that is this control of nature, internal. And so for Swami Vivekananda, he puts this statement further, having controlled nature, internal and external. He mentions temples, churches, dogmas, doctrines, books are but secondary details. Rituals are secondary details. Where do we find the fight? In a lecture on unity, Swami Vivekananda mentions the double-edged sword of religion. Nowhere has more peace been spread, more brotherly feeling, more hospitals and institutions. Nowhere will you find developed more hatred, more bloodshed. There's a kind of dichotomy, two sides of a same coin. Well, he puts it in that way. Why? Because we didn't follow this formula that he's giving, that there's an essence of truth somewhere, and all these other divergences that we disagree over, fight over, are all just extensions of, at the end of the day, Bhoga Aishwarya, enjoyment and power, principally power. So we had a wonderful inter-service function that is every year at the Baha'i Center. It was there on Sunday. And I was in discussion with one of the Baha'i people there, and some man came up and he said, you see, why don't all religions learn to get on with each other? Why don't the leaders of the religions, why don't they come in and tell us to all unite? Because we had this wonderful thing where everybody was saying, please unite. Representatives of seven religions saying, let's all unite. My reply was, the priests, the pundits, and the mullahs want to divide everything. It's not in their interest to unite everything. The leaders that you're talking about, these are the people who want to divide things. It's the philosophers and the mystics that want to unite everything. It's the people who see the underlying unity and essence that want to unite everything, because they see the commonality. We all have the same problems. We all have the same infrastructure. We all have the same internal biological flora and fauna. We have millions and billions of bacteria that carry free citizenship in our gut. We never think about it. Even on a square inch of your face, billions of bacteria find their home, making wonderful cities. We don't think of it, but they are useful to us. Many of them are useful to us. The pathogenic ones, when they're dormant, when they come out, they give us a problem because all kinds of conditions shifted, including toxic material in the human body. So Patanjali says purification. External and internal is what's meant And the commentators bring this out. Vyasa, Vachaspati, and so on bring it out. Not just external, but internal. Well, internal means internal psychologically, but also internal physically. If we are serious and think that this earth car is divinely given to us and is operating so that we can get our moksha, that is our freedom, if we seriously take it, if we seriously think that we have a steady, enduring purpose in our life, then we will take every opportunity we can to take this body as the Lord's temple. This is said in every religion. St. Paul says it in Christianity. This is the temple of the Lord. But how many people take it seriously? So we have a difficulty in first world developed countries of obesity. We have an obesity problem here in Ireland, a growing obesity problem. We have an obesity problem in the United States of America. It's estimated some 30 to 40% of these populations are obese. That means they have a body mass index over 25. We take it for granted. We don't think. We see somebody who has a distorted physical frame and we say, well, that's natural. We don't take much notice of it. Only if you go to the wilds where wild animals operate and you're able to count or observe animals in the wild. Once a year or more probably in countries like Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, an elephant count is given. Now you will notice elephants of different sizes, but you will not see elephants of different proportions. All the same proportions. You won't find one fat, you won't find one thin, you won't find one emaciated, you won't find one, looking like looking like Ganesha, in fact, if you want to use an elephant symbol. All right, we don't find these things. We find all pretty much standard proportioned animals. When we come down to the buck, impala, and so on, we find all more or less standard size as well, not just standard proportion. You won't know any difference. They all look the same. How is it? Why is it? Because they don't eat at McDonald's. That is simple as that. All right? They learn to naturally regulate their food. I'm not bashing any fast food thing. And so, you know what I'm saying. All right? Otherwise, I might get sued by McDonald's or something. I don't know. But you get the idea. All right? So, it is well known when you mix carbohydrates and fats, sugars and fats, what will happen? Not only will you get obese, but it becomes an addiction. It's an addictive thing. Why? Because we're thoughtless. And there's a psychological component to addiction. It gives us a way of coping. Why? Because there's no spirituality. There's no understanding or tuning that there's a divine essence here and everywhere, that when we tune into it, we get immense joy. Any deviation from that tuning is a deviation from our own opportunity for a wonderful, exhilarating joy, a constant sense of internal rapture. Why shouldn't we tune in as much as we can? It's because we're ignorant about it. We're not convinced about it. I had a conversation on the phone. The person was saying, I really desperately want to follow spiritual life. Why don't you do it? He said, in all honesty, because I'm not convinced. There's still an element of doubt in me that says that all of this is not valid. Well, doubt is a good thing. Skepticism is a good thing. Everybody did it. Sri Ramakrishna, before he had his vision, doubted. Is the Holy Mother, is the Divine Mother of the universe contained in this basalt image? People say it's true, but is it? Pursued it, with great resolve, with great yearning, able to tell us after, here's the key. Weep for God for 3 days and you'll get his vision. But who does it? People weep mountains of tears, buckets full of tears, he says, for a wife and children and family and so on. But whoever weeps for God was his question. It's a simple thing to do, but obviously it has to be done with sincerity. You can't just sit there and recall some sad incident from your childhood, weep tears, and then expect something to come. No, those who weep for God. Actors can do that. Tears will come. How do you manage to manufacture that? I thought of a time when I was alone and sad and I was 5. Oh, I see, and tears flow. Very good. You have a technique about it. But some spontaneous feeling, some desperation, how can we get an answer? So coming back to the Bhagavad Gita, reiterating some things we've done before, this was the condition we find Arjuna in. He was shaking. He exhibited all the symptoms of a disturbed mind that we find reiterated in a systematic way in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. The symptoms of grief, shaking, irregular breathing. In his case, unable to hold his bow. This person who had tremendous concentration, who was able to shoot an arrow where others couldn't do it. Well known for it, but all of a sudden, we're all vulnerable in this sense. Now
Did Krishna know that this was going to happen to Arjuna, or was it what's the word, a random occurrence? Like, was he did he know when he was in the chariot that Arjuna was going to say what he said?
You might say if the Lord is all-knowing, yes. You see, all-knowing events is one thing. Interfering, which takes away your sense of responsibility, is another. And that is why there's a law of sowing and reaping. We shouldn't take that law away. Part of the natural law is causal and deterministic. Whatever you do and whatever you think, that has its consequences. We're about to discuss that when we discuss the 3 gunas, by the way. So the passage there that mentions it. And in all fairness, we have to tell you, it's assumed that you know what these are. We have to tell you, this is what is meant. Because you see, the whole of science, the whole of any endeavor concerned with nature, the whole of anything that is to do with manipulating nature, either here or hereafter, deemed as Vedic ritual, or for that matter, any religious ritual that has heaven in mind, or some benefit in mind, all of this will be binding because of these 3 gunas. Because the whole of nature is just these 3 evolutionary forces. And we'll explore why that is, and whether it's valid in the light of today's modern science. Now, if it's true, it has to be. You have no option. But is it demonstrably true is another question. We'll deal with all of that shortly. So, in short, the universe would have an insight into all the events, but there is proviso for free will. Now, free will, of course, is a standard argument. As soon as there were atheists who came to combat theists in the West, because it's not an Oriental argument. In the Orient, in Vedanta, we don't care if you believe in God or not. These 3 gunas come from a Sankhya philosophy that is purely atheistic. It doesn't care if you believe in God. Then if you ask the Sankhya, well, then this is a messy world. Why did God make such a mess? Well, don't ask the Sankhya's that. The Sankhya's will reply, don't ask me, I don't believe. I never stated there was a God like that. Your extra-cosmic created God, we never accepted. Well, then what do you propose to do? What's the cause of it, and what do you propose to do about it? How do you propose to adjust it? The Sankhya replies, the cause is transferred thinking. These 3 gunas, these evolutionary forces, they are not just qualities, they are substances. When you repeat the quality aspect of it, the substance reverberates in the body, because the body is made from those same three things. You assert strong, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony. The human body picks up all these values and 50 to 70 trillion cells reverberate with it. Not only that, but is this disconnected from the adjacent field, what's called air, or the electromagnetic system that finds its place everywhere? What are fields? Fields are things that have no restriction. They are areas. They're areas which have their effect, have their influence. They're areas like that. They have no boundaries. Where does the electromagnetic field start? Where does it end? Where does the gravitational field start? Where does it end? We don't know, but we're sitting right in it. If we were not sitting right in it, we'd all be flying off. And we're not. We're all sitting comfortably. The gravitational field is right here, in us and with us. The electromagnetic field is here with us. You can switch on a mobile phone, but I'd be anxious if you do. But if you want it, you can switch on a mobile phone and instantly you have a connection with the electromagnetic field. You have a radio broadcast access. It is radio waves that you're picking up through your mobile phone. It's contained within, as part of the plethora of various waves within, a field called electromagnetic field. Previously there was electricity and then there was magnetism. Maxwell managed to combine them as electromagnetism. Now the ancient people in the ancient days knew it, but they had it separately. And these were called tanmatras. And we went through this maybe last week or something, yeah? Tanmatras, an essential part of your understanding. So as soon as you think, what are you doing? Where is the thought coming from? If you are under the illusion that it's coming from your own mind, you're mistaken. You're not a separate single unit that has independent thinking like that. Thought is supplied as a current, just as electricity is supplied as a current from the electromagnetic wave system. We can tap into it, put an adapter. Now we can have non-standard adapters. We can have different and variable adapters. One adapter would be a light bulb. It'll exhibit light. You put a different adapter, it exhibits heat. Put another adapter, it brings a rotation movement. A fan produces cooling. It depends on the adapter you harness to it. In this way, we are set with multiple adapters. We call these technically upadis. Normally, unfortunately, translated as limiting factors, limiting elements. But then why shouldn't you view them as, on the other side, manifesting adapters? When you see these manifesting adapters, a sense of appreciation comes. You can see the glory being exhibited through it. That provides you with a sense of enjoyment. When you trace it back to a divine source, and do that habitually, why shouldn't you get a good addiction to God, loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength? And why should that neutralize and counteract any addiction that you have which will be harmful because it's temporary? It gives you only a temporary solution to either a psychological upset or a physical upset, or both, normally both, and they're all connected. All right, so we can pick this up here. Anyhow, Yavashyatmika bhutyeke hakuro nandana bahushakahya antascha buddhaya vyavashayinam. Vyashyatmika, one-pointed, is a term that means one-pointed. And buddhi is determination. So eka is single, one-pointedness and determination. Here, you see, to the firm in mind, those who have cultivated this power of concentration, there is this but one decision to make. Why are you unhappy? I can't decide whether to do this, whether to do that. I used to be decisive, but I'm not so sure now. That's the old statement. You see? My mind is in turmoil. I wish I didn't have so many decisions. When I first went to America, I came from Zimbabwe to America. In Zimbabwe, and he'll know this probably, he might have been, no, it was after the time, but anyway, you had a choice of cornflakes or cornflakes. You go into a shop, what do you want for breakfast? Cornflakes. You'll not be set with a million questions, what kind of cornflakes? You go to the shop, you buy milk. Is it low-fat milk? Is it high-fat milk? Is it this percentage milk? That percentage milk? There's no choice like that in Zimbabwe. It's milk or non-milk. Finished. You go to America, you want to buy milk, it's not so simple. You look at this whole range and you immediately get confused. What does it mean? 10%, what is that? 20%, 30%, should I get 40%? Is 40% better than 10%? An internal debate occurs. You leave the shop, you go back home. Did you get the milk, Swamiji? No, I couldn't decide. But we just wanted milk. I know, that's what I wanted too. But there were all these options. Too many choices, see? So we like that. We're caught in a confusing spiral. What to select? And what to decide in life. If we have no element of viveka, discernment, we'll be set with these questions. What should I do? Where should I go? What career should I take? How should I dress today? What should I eat? How should I behave? Behavior is the one area that requires the most decisions. We try to make them instantly because there are many factors involved. On the 10th, 11th of March, we have the first edition this year of the Enneagram, The Essence of Truth. From there we find out, you book your place, because it's the start of understanding Vedanta. How so? Because one of the key blockages, the things that are stopping the full manifestation of your glory, is what we call a sense of I, self-image, ahamkara. My sense of embodiment, my sense of being a body with somehow a vague characteristic or personality, which I can be proud of. But the pride is misplaced because the whole personality rests on a compulsion. And the compulsion is there to avoid pain, or to avoid something we don't like, or to avoid fear. Moving toward pleasure, moving between these two areas of a balance, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. And that's how we operate our life, a kind of push-pull area, and that becomes our strategy. But it becomes a confusing strategy because sometimes the fear dominates, sometimes pain dominates, and there's no way of adjusting it, normally speaking. But what's the panacea for all that? We take our attention and steer it in a more useful direction, in a more elevating way. So to the firm in mind, those who are not beset by confusion, those who have the capacity to concentrate, what will happen? There's only but one decision. Just as when people are stressed, and I say, how many activities? I mentioned this last week. How many activities do you have to do? And somebody says 101 activities. They know you have one activity, and then another, because time doesn't come in a chunk. Fortunately for us, it comes in units called seconds. And we're able to do one thing and leave it. Another thing and leave it. Another thing and leave it. So many branching and endless other decisions of the infirm in mind, you see, that is the irresolute, what's called avyavasainam, the irresolute. Don't forget, we start the process by saying we have to have a firm intention, a firm resolution. Without that resolution, how will you get anywhere? I always say, isn't it, there are three components to success. A strong desire for something, then a determination to get it, and then dedication. And in the context of Sister Nivedita, I was talking about why she was called Nivedita, the dedicated one. For those who don't know, Nivedita is our kind of patron saint here, because she was Vivekananda's disciple, and she was an Irish lady, born in 1867. This year is her 150th anniversary from 2017, right up to when she was born. And then, of course, the end of that would be October. So, many branching, not just one thing, which means energy is dissipated. Psychic energy is now dissipated. So firmness of mind is necessary. It was possible, of course, it was well known for Arjun alone, among all the disciples of Drona who taught them archery, to shoot his arrow successfully. And he did this at a target within a grove. And his success was entirely due to concentration. There's a story Swami Vivekananda came across while he was in America. And on one occasion he saw a few students practicing shooting. And their target was 3 or 4 eggshells bobbing in a stream. And as they were floating, what he said, they couldn't shoot it because it was bobbing and moving. So Swami said, I'll try. And the youths were provoked. They thought it was a good challenge. They might have a good laugh about it. So they challenged his ability. And so handling a gun for the first time in his life, the Swami shot and smashed the shell that he aimed at in one stroke. So the secret of success, he then says to these boys, lies in concentration. And when the others wondered how he could achieve it, at the very first attempt, as claimed by him, that's what he said. Jagadish Chandra Bose, knighted eventually, he missed the Nobel Prize, encouraged by Sister Nivedita, because he was overlooked by the British. They kept him down. One of the bugbears of Sister Nivedita, that he was treated so unfairly. But what a revolutionary man in the realm of radio and also plant resonance, system of biology that says and demonstrates how plants have feelings, even though they have no nervous system. Because plants can do what you and I cannot do. They can take sunshine and convert it into food and life and growth. Imagine. You and I are not clever enough to do it. We work on the borrowed sunshine, and we eat their carbohydrates that they produce and huff and puff on the oxygen they give off. Without plants, we don't have a life. This ability to use, and now we know through quantum biology, a quantum tunneling method, is involved in photosynthesis. What a wonderful marvel that is there. Anyway, Jagadish Chandra Bose, he found that in man are in that the sensations we find in man are in plants as well. And when he was asked how he could probe into that mystery, what was his answer? What was his reply? He says, to know all about the plants, I myself mentally became a plant. We have a kind of joke about it, you know. You understand a tree, be the, and all of that, you see. We have a joke about it. But that's literally how you do it. Now let's look at meditation. Imagine you have a personal ideal of God. Imagine if you become, in your imagination, this entity. Imagine if you're so familiar with that entity. If you have a historical Ishtadevata, surely you should know, supposing it's Jesus, surely you should try and find out, how did he walk? What did he say? How did he say it? What did he eat? What did he drink? How many hours did he sleep? How many hours did he pray? How many hours did he meditate? What words of wisdom came out? How did he renounce? How was he content to sit around a fire? We presume he ate some fish. How did he manage all these things? What was the wiring in him that made him look at things differently, so that one person says Lazarus is sleeping, but he says Lazarus is dead, but he says he but sleepeth. And the man wakes up. Somebody says this man is lame. Jesus' view, no, his leg's fine. I'm blind from birth. Here's somewhat water on your eyes. I think you're not blind at all, because I see behind you a perfection that can never be sighted or blind, that is always perfect and full and free. But all you have to do is wash the mud off in a stream, and your sight will be restored. Why? Your faith has saved you. Something in you did it, not something in me. What is the wiring in such a person? If our Ishta Devata is Sri Ramakrishna, should we not find out how many hours did he sleep? What did he feel when he found an impulse to sing and dance? What food did he eat? What sensitivity was there in his digestive system? He couldn't eat rich food. His milk had to be diluted. What were the kind of things that inspired him into a state of ecstatic trance? What was the wiring in him that made him see things differently, so that he was able to see the Lord of the universe present, equally present everywhere, without any sense of gender, just equilibrium, equality? What was within him that made him the child of the mother, that he heard the mother, the voice of the mother, heard her footsteps and anklets? What was inside that entity? Do you know? So many people say, ask, who's your Ishtadevata, who's your ideal? Maybe Jesus, maybe Buddha, maybe Ramakrishna, maybe Ram, maybe Krishna. Oh, let's say Krishna. How did he look? How did he walk? We know how he thought, because he has this revolutionary movement called the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where he teaches for the first time a practical application of a lofty philosophy. So all of this becoming one with your object, that is real one-pointedness. The rest is just, all disturbances. Reaching Godhood, the hardest of all, is possible to none but the firm in mind. The one-pointed devotion is given as an example of the gopis, or Srimati Radha to Shri Krishna illustrates the fact of this unity. I feel what the other person feels. We are compared to a human relationship. I complete the other person's sentences. See, that form of a relationship. I feel automatically, even though we're at a distance, what that other person is feeling. So in tune are we. So Sri Ramakrishna makes this comment: in whatever direction a ship may be sailing, the compass needle is in it always points to the north. Even so, amidst all eventualities in life, the mind of the knowing man is always fixed on the ideal. And echoing what Sri Ramakrishna said, Swami Brahmananda, whose birthday was last week, he said, operate in life like a child plays with a pole and swings around it. Catch God and then swing. Fix your mind and then go and do all your activities. Now the ways of the infirm in mind have been mentioned, and they're further mentioned as follows in the next stanza. And I think we only have time now for one or two more stanzas. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya avipashitaha veda padarata partha nanya astiti vadina. The unwise who delight in the flowery words disputing about the Vedas say that there is nothing other than this. Other than what? Than this intellectual discourse about rules, regulations, rituals, whether the Vedas say that, whether the Vedas say this. We can replace the word Veda and say Bible, Quran, any scripture, the words of Baha'u'llah, whatever it is, and debate for eons what they mean. Was Jesus born in a stable or a cave? How many angels are there on the head of a pin? Was the big topic in Thomas Aquinas' day. See? Did Jesus die on the Friday or the Saturday or the Sunday or whatever it was? Was it the Passover? How many people saw him? Was it 2? Was it 3? Was it 1? Who saw him first? All of these things. Was Jesus born in Nazareth or Bethlehem? Scholars are arguing. What change does it make in your own life? Whether he is born in Mars, what changes it? So this text torturing, this very scripture talks against. It will apply itself to this scripture too. Don't take all these words. If you take them and don't use them in a practical sense, what use are they? Kamatmana swarga para janma karma pala pratham kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati. Who are desire-ridden, who hold the attainment of heaven as the goal of birth and its activities. What religion tells you? Do this, you'll get a prize in heaven. You do something bad, you'll be roasted on a barbecue called hell. You choose. What's your motive for doing good and for morality? Oh, my motive is, I get a reward at the end. Why do you work so hard? So you can go to the Bahamas in the summer or something. Why are you working so hard day and night? You'll find, it's because I want some desire somewhere. For who? Primarily for me. Will you take the family? Yeah, they'll have to come along. So who are desire-ridden, who hold the attainment of heaven as their goal of birth and its activities. Why are you born? To get heaven? But heaven here, what is it? You saved up all your life for a holiday, you went to heaven, spent your expenditure, you have to come back, is the law of karma. Whose words are laden with specific rites, rituals to get some result, bringing in pleasure and lordship. Pleasure and lordship. These are the two things, pleasure and power. Bhogashvarya prashaktanam taya prahatyachetasham vyavasatyatmika buddhi samadhana vidiyate. There's no fixity of mind for them who cling to pleasure and power and whose discrimination is stolen away. Every opportunity, every second is an opportunity for a good investment, for a wise decision, for looking at things in a right way. When you fail to use that, it's a stolen second. There's a second. It'll never come back. It's gone forever. What did you put in it? And so Sri Ramakrishna has this to say, the vulture soars high up in the sky, but its eyes are always on the carrion and carcass below on the earth. However much one may be learned in the Vedas, Bible, Quran, whatever it is. As long as one's eyes are fixed on sense pleasures, one acts like a vulture. Spiritual enlightenment is not to the one given to lust and greed. All these people, so well versed in religion, yet not knowing anything. So there's the Sri Ramakrishna story of the boatman, familiar to us now. You have the learned Pandit, learned in the Vedas, and many other things. Vedas are essentially a science book and book on rituals. How to get something from this life, how to manipulate nature, but also the basis of it, scientific basis of it, is called the Vedas in its ritualistic portion, Karma Kanda. Upanishads is the Jnana Kanda portion, the synthesis of which is here in the Bhagavad Gita. So on a small boat, now it's an Indian boat, of course, all right? It's not a big liner or something. And if you've ever seen Indian boats, then you'll see how rocky they are and tenuous they are. On this boat, A great Pandit is traveling in luxury. Luxury means relaxing nicely, maybe puffing a pipe or so, and the ignorant peasant of a boatman is rowing, and he knows in advance this man is not learned. So with puffed up pride he says, "My dear boatman, do you know physics? How the universe is constructed? And how a beautiful thing is that you arrived? We can update it if we like to quantum physics, but we don't have to." "No, I know nothing." Well, if you know nothing of the beauty and construction and organization of the universe, then 1/4 of your life is gone. And as they go on, I'm adapting the story, of course. As they go on, Pandit, a great scholar, says, "Do you know history and geography?" "No, I know nothing of those. I read nothing on those. I hardly have reading capacity at all." "Oh, then unfortunately, if you don't know this history and geography, you don't know the cultural achievements of mankind, and you don't know the beautiful places on this planet. 1/2 of your life is gone." As they go further, "Do you know literature and poetry?" "No, I know nothing of this." "Ah, you've missed out tremendously. 3/4 of your life is gone. You don't know the beauty of artistry and culture that man has provided. The beauty in nature and all of these descriptions. But then you see the river, large river, as you know in India, huge rivers, broad rivers. And we find the rocky motion of the boat, and things become insecure, and a big storm arises, and there's no doubt this boat is going to be overturned. And the boatman turns to the great scholar and says, "Oh, sir, yes, because the man is trembling now. Do you know swimming?" "There's no, I don't." "Then your whole life is gone." So you see, scholarship is one thing. Manipulating and text torturing all these scriptures is one thing. Putting everything in the head and nothing from the heart or the applied hands. All of these things have to go together. And so this is what is being warned against. Now this is a beautiful statement, and then we have to finish. What ought to be the ideal in life is a good question. Well, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nishtraigunya Bhavajna Nirdando Nitya Sattastho Niryog Shema Atmavan. The Vedas deal with only one thing. They deal with the 3 gunas. They deal with these 3 evolutionary forces, some of which I've told you about. Next week I'll expand more fully. Now you transcend these 3 gunas. You can transcend nature. You're not bound by it. A materialist has a difficulty. We have no option. We have to go with nature. We're bound by natural selection. Then how do you explain that man doesn't require it? If man was bound to it, we'd have a regime like the Nazis in Germany, who followed Darwinian principles and said, survival of the fittest. If you're weak, if you're in any way disabled, or if you're the wrong race, as we deem you, not part of the pure Aryan race as they interpret it, then we have to do away with you. Because Darwinian principles, survival of the fittest, social Darwinism. So they enumerate this because they're talking about nature. You transcend these 3 gunas. Be free from the pairs of opposites. Pleasure, pain, praise, blame. Good, bad. Ever balanced, unconcerned with getting and keeping. See how concerned we are about getting and keeping. When we move from here, there'll be a big revelation about what we get, or what we got, and what we kept. Unconcerned with getting and keeping, and centered in the self. That's in contrast. 2 things are there. Nature as it goes, insentient, per se, and the activating principle. This is all derived from Kapila's Sankhya. Sri Ramakrishna makes this word, this commentary. The word Gita Rapidly repeated, it would sound tyagi, 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 and tyagi is modification of tyagi, the man of renunciation. Renunciation of the phenomenal existence is the gist of this Gita. We'll pick it up in expanded explanation, but just to brief you, finally, and we'll pick it up in more detail next week, to an enlightened Brahmana, that is a knower of the truth, a knower of the supreme principle of Brahman, all the Vedas, that means all scriptures, are as useful as a tank when there is a flood everywhere. This is the only scripture that destroys itself at the appropriate juncture. You may say, why are we studying it? At the appropriate juncture. The knower of Brahman. We leave it off there. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.